I don't know if it was just delegated to me, but I feel that, I was very lucky that I was in the position I was in, and I felt lucky that people trusted me to be someone that was reasonable about what was going to help the fighting and was going to help the sport survive. And, a lot of those things, I can tell you, when I was coming up with some of the rules, it was a tough thing for me to do because I knew I was affecting certain people. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but, there was guys, Mark Coleman was basically the UFC champion right at about that time. And Mark was, if people don't realize, he was very dominant. But he was dominant in the fact that he was so good at getting on top of people and basing out, and they couldn't get him off. And he would use his head like a hammer, and he would just sit there and headbutt people, to the point where they had to frickin' let go of his arms, and then he would open up, and he was very effective with that style. And I knew when I ended up taking headbutts out, I knew I was affecting Mark Coleman. And I felt bad about it. But I was looking at the sport as a whole and saying, I can't have headbutting allowed in this sport when in boxing it is such a terrible thing. And that's what people are going to associate this with. So they're going to say, oh, well, you're trying to be, that's dirty. That's bad. And, just the ground fighting aspect was enough to where, there were so many things that, were in there that I would try to change to not affect it. I put in, no pressure point attacks. And it was, I knew when I did that. There was not one fighter was doing pressure point attacks.
Right,
right. Because it's not effective. But I knew that I was opening up a can of worms for all of these people that were studying under a martial art that had pressure point attacks. I knew I was giving George Dillman, the thing about, what we do is so dangerous, they won't even allow it in the UFC and stuff.
That's right.
You had to do those things because I was trying to put rules in there, some that were going to affect the sport and some that they weren't going to affect it, but at least they looked like, hey, there's more rules, there's a lot they can't do.
You say in the book that if you were allowed to bet, you'd be a rich man because of the looks on guys' faces in the locker room sometimes before they come out. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, when you're the referee and you go in the back and you talk to fighters, and, I'm there to explain, not the rules per se, but the conduct of the bout, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, when I say this, what it means to them, what they need to do. If they want out of the fight, this is what they can do. If they're wanting to stay in the fight, this is what you have to do. You have to show me. All those things are for the bout conduct. And many times when you're dealing with that fighter, that fighter is talking to you and talking to you in a certain way, and you can see the guys that are confident. You can see the guys that believe in themselves or are not feeling pressure in the fight, and you'll see the guys that are feeling pressure. You're going to see the guys that aren't confident, and they may be the guys, they could be the world champion, but they are at this time, at this moment, because they know they haven't done the right things leading up to this point in time. Mm-hmm. They haven't trained the way they were supposed to. They haven't put in the time. They haven't done what they know they personally needed to do to win. And now the moment is here, and they can't change it. And so they start to show that, their mind is in other places, and they're not confident. And so you'll get that off of some fighters. And most of the time, you're gonna be able to tell this is gonna be a bad night for this guy.